We begin in the world of Hydaelyn, a planet consisting of three main continents: Aldenard to the west, Ilsabard in the center, and Othard to the east. The Garlean Empire conquered large portions of Ilsabard and Othard many years ago, while Eorzea, consisting of Aldenard and its outlying islands, is defended by a coalition of city-states known as the Eorzean Alliance. Rods at Han, a mercantile city-state on the island of Thavnair to the east of Eorzea, and Old Charlian, an island nation of scholars far to the northwest of Eorzea, have remained unaligned and neutral in the conflict between the Eorzean Alliance and the Garlean Empire. In previous events, the Warrior of Light, an adventurer blessed by the entity Hydaelyn, or the Mother Crystal, together with the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, an organization composed of warriors and scholars, learned the origins of the Ascians. 13 of the members of the Convocation of 14, the leadership of the Amyrtine, or Ancients, a race of immortals whose world was devastated by an event known as the Final Days, and defeated the last of their leadership. The Ascians had sought to restore their people into Theris, the single world from which they came, that Hydaelyn sundered into 14 shards, or alternate versions, long ago. Self-titled Hydaelyn, also known as the Source, the First, and 12 other reflections. But with the death of Elidibus, the last of the unsundered Ascians, the remaining sundered Ascians are now free to pursue their own goals, seemingly no longer bound to the task of restoring the Amyrtine. The Scions also found the cure for tempering, a magical affliction akin to degenerative mind control that was originally thought to be irreversible, permitting hope of an end to the summoning of primals, or icons, powerful creatures composed of ether, or mist, the world's energy source of both magic and life, which both cause tempering and drain the land of ether, and thus its ability to support life. Fandaniel, a sundered Ascian renegade, has offered his services to Xenos Ye Galvus, son of Garlean Emperor Varus Zos Galvus, after Xenos murdered Varus, placing Garlemald in utter chaos. Unlike previous Ascians, Fandaniel is motivated by pure nihilism, desiring to re-trigger the final days in order to be freed from his immortal, but fragmented, existence. Fandaniel secures Xenos' cooperation by promising a rematch against the Warrior, one that will exceed even their fiercest battle during previous events. He then raises a doomsday cult, known as the Telophoroi, from captives tempered by mysterious towers placed across the world. This gives him an army of fanatics supported by strange lunar variants of previously fought primals. The Eorzean Alliance and the Beast Tribes, freed from their primals tempering by the Scions, unite against this new threat by forming an organization called the Grand Company of Eorzea. The Scions also learn that the Forum, Charlian's ruling council, may possess additional secret knowledge regarding the final days, as they mysteriously refuse to aid the Grand Company. The Warrior and the Scions travel to Charlian to learn what the Forum knows of the final days. Along the way, the Warrior encounters an ephemeral figure, revealed to be Hydaelyn herself, who explains that she too is a primal. Upon arrival at Charlian, the Scions are forced to divide their efforts between investigating there and assisting Thavnair, which has requested their aid. Alphino, Alizae, Y'shtola, Grahatia, and Kryal, members of the Scions, along with the Warrior, form the Charlian group, investigating libraries for tomes of relevant knowledge and gaining access to Labyrinthos, an underground biodome where the world's flora and fauna are collected, catalogued, and maintained, including a rare flower called Elpis that physically responds to emotional energy, known as Dynamis, or Akasha, by changing color. Hydaelyn possesses Kryal's body and gives an Elpis to the Warrior before the group is discovered and brought before the Forum for an official inquiry, resulting in their access around Charlian being heavily restricted. Thancred, Urianger, and Estinian, also members of the Scions, together with the Warrior, aid the alchemists of Thavnair in perfecting warding scales, talismans developed to shield the wearer from enthrallment by Fandaniel's towers. The group, having been originally summoned by head alchemist Nadana to assist in dealing with the tower, meet the satrap, or ruler, of Rods at Han, learning that the dragon scales which make up the warding scales cores are provided by the dragon Vritra, who is the city-state's true ruler, with the satrap being merely a figurehead. The Warrior and Nadana confirm the warding scale's effectiveness at the nearby tower, called the Tower of Zot, before Nadana is captured by Fandaniel, who reveals himself to have been a scientist named Amon in the ancient Allagan civilization before being inducted into the Ascians prior to the Fourth Umbral Calamity, in which a world shard was rejoined to the Source. The Warrior and the Scions fight their way up the tower, defeating primals known as the Mega Sisters, and investigating the tower's core, observing that it absorbs far more energy than necessary to summon primals. Afterward, they destroy the core, leading to the destruction of the tower itself and freeing the tempered captives imprisoned within it. After the warding scales are mass-produced, the Scions join a group of Grand Company members to infiltrate Garlemald and stop Xenos. Fighting through both tempered Garleans, as well as some untempered who refuse the Grand Company's aid and oppose them, the group discovers the source of tempering to be the Tower of Babel, built in the ruins of the Garlean Imperial Palace within the capital. As the group convinces a faction of Garleans to ally with them, Babel begins pulsing, tempering the Garleans, while the voice of Varus is heard through a nearby radio. In the midst of the chaos, the warrior is taken to Babel by Fandaniel, where he transfers her soul into an unknown Garlean soldier's body, severely limiting her power. The warrior learns that the Garleans have been tempered by anima, a primal created from the corpse of Varus and the fervent desire of the Garlean citizens for a savior. Xenos transfers the soul into the warrior's body with the intention of killing the Scions in order to motivate her into a rematch for revenge, but the warrior successfully intervenes, stopping him and regaining her body. The Scions then assault Babel, defeating Anima and reaching Fandaniel and Xenos in the tower's control room. However, Babel has already absorbed sufficient ether from the other towers, channeling it into a powerful beam, nearly strong enough to break the seal imprisoning Zodiark, the original Primal, existing as darkness in opposition to Hydaelyn's light, on the moon. While Fandaniel and Xenos use Babel's teleporter to travel to the moon and finish breaking Zodiark's seal, the Scions deal with Anima's now frenzied tempered, while the warrior goes after them. She reaches them just as Zodiark is released, and Fandaniel merges into it, subjugating the souls within and becoming its new core in place of Elidibus. Upon Zodiark's defeat, Fandaniel reveals his true goal to destroy it in its weakened state, sacrificing his own life before it can be resealed, as Zodiark's existence has been a necessary evil in order to maintain the planet's ether flow, and its destruction means the restarting of the final days. Realizing the warrior is no longer interested in fighting him, Xenos postpones their rematch and returns to the planet. Joined by Thancred, Y'shtola, and Urianger, the warrior learns that Hydaelyn has been preparing a contingency should the final days come again, and they meet with the Loporrits, rabbit-like beastmen created by Hydaelyn, who serve to carry out a mass exodus from the planet using the moon, which is revealed to be a giant spaceship, and have been working with the Forum for many years. Urianger remains behind to help the Loporrits better understand the world's culture and make the moon a more suitable place for its population, while the others regroup with the remaining Scions and Sharlayan. Together, they learn that Rod-Zit-Han is being attacked by monsters similar to those from the original Final Days, and that these monsters are villagers, transformed as a result of their ether being rotted away by flow stagnation, combined with being in an emotional state of despair that reduces them to soulless creatures composed of pure dynamis. The Satrap is killed during a dynamis outbreak in Rod-Zit-Han, with Vritra forced to reveal his true identity as ruler, while the Forum extends an invitation to the Hanish people to join them in their evacuation. Determined to stop the Final Days, the warrior returns to the First to seek answers from Elidibus, whose essence remains in the Crystal Tower. With Zodiark destroyed, Elidibus uses the last of his power to send the warrior into the past to learn more of the final days from Fandaniel's original self, Hermes. The warrior arrives in the past at an Amyrtine research facility which shares the name of the flower, Elpis, meeting with past versions of Emet-Selch, who will later become an uncentered Ascian, and his friend Hythlodaeus, who arrived to recruit Hermes into the convocation. They also meet with Hydaelyn in her original form as Vana, who previously held the position of Azim on the convocation, and she deduces that the warrior is from the future after sensing her own magic within the warrior's blessing of light. The warrior divulges to her, Emet-Selch, and Hythlodaeus the details of their futures, including Fandaniel and the final days. With this knowledge, they decide to seek out Hermes and his creation, Medion, a being made of dynamis, who is linked to a collective consciousness of similar creations, the Media, that are tasked with seeking out the meaning of life across the universe. Receiving her sister's findings that numerous civilizations across the universe have perished for various reasons, a despairing Medion is spirited away by Hermes to a research facility so the Media can compile their findings to reach a conclusion. After the group defeats Hermes, Medion voices the Media's conclusion that all life is meaningless and must be destroyed to eliminate the prolonging of needless suffering, with Hermes covering her escape into space to invoke the final days. The warrior and Vana escape, while Emet-Selch and Hythlodaeus stay behind and are inflicted, along with Hermes, with a spell he casts that erases their recent memories of everything that has occurred since encountering the warrior. Returning to her time, the warrior and Scions offer their assistance to help complete Sharlayan's starship, the Ragnarok, in return for using the Ataioscope, Sharlayan's device which allows for travel into the center of the planet, deep in the ethereal sea, where Hydaelyn resides. The Scions then meet with Hydaelyn and defeat her as part of her final test to ensure their resolve, and she fades away after infusing Azim's crystal, which the warrior acquired in previous events, with the last of her power. She also gives the Scions a tracking crystal revealing Medion's location, along with access to the Mother Crystal, an enormous mass of concentrated ether to power the Ragnarok's travel. Guided by Hydaelyn's tracking crystal, the warrior and Scions travel to Ultima Thule, an area of pure dynamis at the farthest edge of the universe, where the Medias are located. Medion traps them in recreations of the dying worlds her sisters visited, with the Scions sacrificing themselves at each location to open a pathway forward. The warrior uses Azim's crystal to revive Emet-Selch and Hythlodaeus, who restore hope to Medion by creating a field of Elpis flowers before fading away, allowing the warrior to revive the Scions. In a moment of lucidity, an anguished Medion begs the warrior to stop her and her sisters by silencing their song of oblivion before turning into a songbird and flying away. The Scions pursue Medion and face the Media as they emerge into the Endsinger, a massively powerful entity who overwhelms the group. The warrior teleports the Scions back to the Ragnarok just before they're killed, resolving to face the Endsinger alone. However, Xenos, who made a deal with Kryl and absorbed the remains of the Mother Crystal to reassume his previous form of Shinryu, a dragon primal, arrives to assist her in defeating the Endsinger. A repentant Medion now realizes the answer she was created to learn, that the act and experience of living itself gives life meaning, was back on Theros the entire time, and resolves to guide the warrior back to her ship. Xenos and the warrior then engage in a final duel to the death, with the warrior killing Xenos before returning to the Ragnarok. With the final days averted and no remaining catastrophic threats, the Scions decide to publicly disband in order to allow the planet's population to become more self-reliant, and they go their separate ways. In Past Elpis, a past version of Elidibus makes mention of a future confrontation with the dread beast Pandemonium.